Welcome to one of the opening sessions of the Culture of Care Summit. Good morning. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Tice. My co-chair is Dr. Antoinette Vicks, and we will be managing these sessions in this room. We are both faculty members, full-time faculty members with the psychology program in the Department of Behavioral Science, and so we welcome all of you to this session. We have a great session for you today, and we're excited to welcome our speakers and to welcome you. Our speakers today will be Dr. Kara Metz. Kara is the program chair of the BA in Health and Human Services, as well as the co-chair of the Faculty Senate. And Matt Galloway is the manager of the Student Support Center. And the way we're going to do this today, we want to welcome you both. I'm going to ask them a couple of quick questions that they will respond to, and then we'll move into a sort of scenario-based format. And we very much encourage all of you to participate in the chat room, where we'll put the scenarios in the chat. And as Matt and Kara are speaking to them, we will be very interested in your thoughts. And hopefully we will have some time at the end for some Q&A. So we're going to start with a couple of questions that I'm going to ask Kara and Matt. The first one is, what does challenging situation mean to you?
Hey everybody, thank you for being here. For me, a challenging situation in this context, I think of as a staff or faculty member who's facing either a personal impact, maybe a loss or a change in their health, or that same person but faced with supporting a student who might be navigating a personal impact, or maybe even who they're navigating a conflict with. So handing over to you, Kara.
Thanks, Matt. So when I look at a challenging situation in the workplace, I see it as one where the answer isn't always very obvious. It often involves having to make a tough decision. There's also potentially an emotional component within the decision or within the situation. And a lot of times the solution is not straightforward, but more of a compromise. Liz, you're on mute.
You're right. Sorry.
It's okay.
I have a second question for you, Matt and Kara. What is the culture of care? What does that mean to each one of you when we use that term, culture of care?
So for me, culture of care is important because it works to build relationships between students, faculty, and others who support our students. Strong, safe relationships allow the students to feel safe to learn, grow, and overcome obstacles to find their success in their way. I'm a huge fan of Rogers, and so it really is based on that idea of unconditional positive regard and empathy and the relationship, and that's really where growth, change, and learning happens. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, for me, and I'm going to steal a little bit of this. I heard this recently and I love the phrasing of it, but the culture of care is about believing in potential and engaging to empower. So I think of that as neither a blanket yes or no. It's a, does this fit? And if not, what else? How can I? It's really a collaboration where we as people holding power have a responsibility to lean into empathy and to think kind of outside the box as we work towards that shared goal of student success.
Great, thank you both. Let's move into the scenario situation. I would ask all of you to put your view on speaker view so that you can see, rather than the Brady Bunch squares, that you can see the person who is speaking. I'm going to put this scenario out there. Kara and Matt will respond to that. It will also be posted in the chat, and we would love to hear your thoughts on the scenario as we work through that. And hopefully by the end, we'll have enough time for question and answer that everybody can get their 2 cents worth in. So does that work?
That
All
works.
right.
And I want to add just one note, Liz. Sorry, we'd planned to each respond to every scenario, but as we talked through these kind of leading up to the session, Kara and I realized that our approaches are actually very similar to the questions. So we kind of combined forces and are going to share with you that collective response for most of these scenarios. So I just wanted to call it out ahead of time since it's a little bit different than the session description. Sorry.
Very good. Thanks, Matt. And as you're listening to these scenarios and as you're listening to Matt and Kara respond, I want you to keep two questions in your mind. The first one is, when you hear the scenario, what immediately goes on for you? What comes to mind when you hear the scenario? What is sort of your instinctual reaction? And then second, what would be your initial steps to support someone who is making this disclosure to you? So keeping that in mind, we will get started with the scenarios. Scenario 1. A student reaches out multiple times a day with questions, often repeating questions and appearing to not respond in full where answers have been provided. I can't imagine that ever happens, Karen. The student is expressing the need for more contact, more support, and more access, and their sense is that you are not embodying the University of Arizona Global Campus culture of care ethic. So I'll turn it over to Matt and Kara to respond first.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this one and just in presenting our thoughts. So a few things immediately come to mind. First for me is, how does the team member or faculty member feel? And really, what kind of support might they be interested in? Second is, what's the student really saying? And have we told them what they can expect from that particular relationship? So my best guess is, as is often the case, working with one part of what is likely a bigger picture. And I want to know more. And that's kind of a theme for me, is questions. I want to know more. So the first step would be to reach out, to check in, and try to understand the faculty or team member's point of view. What has already been done? Has anyone had a chance to connect with the student about this report? And really recognizing, regardless of how we might feel we are presenting the information, there's something that the student feels is missing. So from there, I imagine we'd work out an action plan that really includes engaging the student to address what is their immediate and primary focus of academic needs, and then either reinforce or establish expectations around that particular team member's role and how the student can best utilize them for support moving forward. I think part of that engagement would also need to be an ask about what else is taking place for the student, because there might be something else that's really driving that behavior at the root of it. And I'd like the student to observe our genuine interest in them and their success, but also to be really clear about the concerns that are present. And I think we can do that through empathy, which is what we're talking about. If these are steps the team member or faculty member might have already taken, they've been reinforced, and there's also been some time to really allow that student to change their behavior and us to observe that, and we're seeing it again, I'd offer to make the outreach instead. And I think this is a demonstration for the student that we are taking this seriously, as well as to the staff member or faculty member that we are supporting them. And at the end, whether I was the one that did the outreach, the staff member, the faculty member, whomever it is, I think it's important to document what we've communicated and our plan, essentially, and put it in email so we're all on the same page and we have that should it be needed if future behaviors become disruptive. And again, as feedback and interactions like this, I think, can be really impactful to each of us. I'd also continue checking in with the team member or faculty member to discuss their support and what else they might need. So that's kind of where we're at with it. Kara, anything I might have missed, or anything we're seeing in the chat, anybody that we want to make sure we pause to talk about?
No, I think the chat, what is not doing enough? Where is that lying? How can they close the gap? What ways have the information been shared? That's a great point. Email leaves a lot to the imagination, right? We can read the same email and get a different context by whatever tone of voice we have in our head. And so that is also a very great point. We're not just communicating through email, but we want to take multiple steps to ensure that the student is understanding what we're saying and hearing us and hearing that we do want to help them, and we hate that they're frustrated with the situation and we're wanting to resolve it.
Mm-hmm. And I love, Teresa, I'm seeing in there a Zoom session, really just offering your availability and person to person. I think that's such a great approach.
Yep. And then Cal emailing with a summary of what was covered is a great next step. That way you have a record, the student has a record. If they don't agree, or they can always follow up, because again, there's this idea of misinterpretation that can happen. And so if you understood one thing at the end of the conversation and the student understood something else, that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. This was great participation.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the next scenario?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, scenario number 2. You observe a sudden change in workplace performance of one of your employees.
Right. So my first question to all of these situations is, how am I feeling? Because I have to get that out of the way before I can jump into this scenario. Because if I don't, then how I'm feeling is going to really color how I'm reading or how I am understanding the situation. And so here, my first reaction is of concern, like what is happening? If there's a sudden change in performance, I'm going to think that there is something happening within that person's life. What's going on that I can't see? Has there been something I've observed over time, but I didn't register? So has this been a slow progress that just hasn't clicked with me? Or has this been like a sudden change? Because I think those two things can be addressed very differently. Who else might I need to talk to, or might I enlist to help support my team while navigating care of an impacted team member? So maybe that team member is impacted and they need to take a step back. How can we as a team help them? I would reach out to the team member and ask if everything is okay. I don't want to assume anything, so a general question is, I'm reaching out, I wanted to make sure that everything was okay. I am observing some changes with your work recently. I might give specific examples, not a blame, but a way to just say, like, I feel like something's off here. Opening up the conversation for the person to talk more about it. I want to have a caring and empathetic tone. I would provide empathy for the information the team member is willing to give and work with that person on how I can help them at work, and to help them balance until they can move forward. So again, I'm looking for solutions. I'm asking the team member if they have possible solutions. It's a very hard thing to come to someone and say, I need help. And so opening up that invitation. If they're open to sharing with me, I wouldn't ask about I'd ask what they're already doing to care for themselves and what barriers they're running into and what I can do to help them. I would also check in with them to make sure that they're doing okay over time. This isn't a one and done discussion. This is something that I want to continue to check in to show care. Continue to remind the team member of what their strengths are and demonstrate that I'm there for their success. They might be having a momentary setback, but they can still find that success. And how can I help them to work to get back to where they used to be? Depending on the nature of what is shared, I might have to engage with HR from the beginning just to make sure that they're protected. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to take some time off, some leave, to focus on whatever it is and get themselves back. I'm really looking to see how I can help that person move forward and be successful. And just because they have a setback doesn't mean that they can't continue to move forward. Matt, do you have anything else I missed?
No, I've just been watching the chat and I love it. Everything I'm seeing is really about meeting someone where they're at, being careful with the language we used to, really demonstrate our care. not stigmatize or traumatize anything, and just really the recognition that life is happening. So get with people and ask some questions. Be transparent. Yeah, I love everything we're seeing there.
And the point is not to have the team member feel chastised for doing something wrong, but really it's a moment to say, hey, I've noticed something is off. And coming from that can help lower defenses and really have that team member want to move forward.
Okay, great. Anything else on this scenario?
No, I think we're good to move on to 3. Yeah.
Okay, scenario number 3. A student reports a financial hardship and blames both the university for not giving them their financial aid funds and the faculty member for what is looking like an unsuccessful course grade that will delay receipt of or eliminate eligibility for their next stipend.
Yeah, thank you. This one, really stands out to me. It's something we've seen before. And I recognize we're talking about how to support faculty and team members who are working through difficult situations. But the first person who comes to mind is the student and what I think they might be trying to say with these accusations. To me, it really just sounds like a cry for help. I'm also, though, immediately mindful of how this could feel to a faculty member or team member being accused of not supporting a student or being the one preventing them from addressing their needs, because that is very personal. In many cases, support's already been provided in the way we're able to, and it may just not have been what someone wanted. So as the person trying to help someone navigating this, my first step would be to ask that faculty member or team member fielding the contact how they're doing. And in this situation, there's 2 people, so working with both. I want to ensure they know I value the way they feel, give them space to feel how they're feeling, but also encourage stepping back and to remember that this claim is most likely not about us, but really rather an expression of this student's kind of frustration and panic. And with that in mind, I would work as a team to figure out what we can do to move forward. Can we address the student's behavior and how they can better serve themselves in the future when navigating impact before we talk about those underlying financial or other basic needs? Or is that a necessary step in order for us to really create that space where we can give this supportive but critical feedback? So with both the faculty and the team member positioned to offer and make referrals to support services on behalf of this student, I think our next step would be discussing who should make that next contact with the student to show them we see their situation, their frustration, we hear them, and to talk through their part in our plan and really confirm that the university wants to help. The faculty focus on care might look like recognizing the impact that was shared, bringing out the student's strengths, and I heard, Kara, you earlier really focus on strengths in the other question, helping them get caught up with extensions or providing the opportunity to maybe redo some of the work. And again, we're talking in kind of general here. With the team member, it could be a focus on how to join with the student and model for them what self-advocacy looks like versus what came across as more of an attack, an accusation. And I think this is such a critical skill that we have an opportunity for developing in instances like this, although it can also be really difficult and often uncomfortable. Now, I also want to say that if this is a pattern of increasing behavior across various team members and faculty, or we're seeing it across multiple departments, it may require the leadership to intervene and directly address that behavior while offering care, rather than those who are in receipt of those initial complaints or claims. And if we've established an action plan previously when addressing those behaviors as they were initially emerging, I'd review that plan, and unless it needs to be revised due to additional information we're now sitting with, implement the action items. And that might involve referrals to areas like the Resolution Center or Student Conduct or even our Behavioral Intervention team. But again, that's considering the far spectrum of where this behavior is at. And again, as I said before, recognizing how personal this may feel to anyone being accused of not supporting someone else, in particular our students, I continue to check in with that faculty and team member throughout this effort and make myself available to them. Anything else, Kara, or that is coming through the chat?
No, I will say, and Angel had advocate even before you said it, so it sounds like you two
Yes.
are on the same wavelength. Teresa says helping students understand where they lost points can help them with a strong academic plan to recoup those missing points. That's exactly right.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, and then it is frustrating if you find that everybody you talk to is in a hurry to get off the phone. So, making sure that you're patient with the situation. I like that.
Yeah, and thank you, Bill. I always appreciate the kudos, those situational variables, and really, again, that pause. And I think that's something you'll see Kara and I talk about throughout is just such an important piece.
All right, I think we're ready for number 4.
Yeah.
Ready for the next one? Okay, this one also never happens. You receive a complaint about someone on your team.
Right.
Where do you go with that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take this one. And I know, Matt, I'm gonna share a little because I think we both had the same reaction. So like I said, we have to review our own reactions, and especially for this one, I think is really important to gauge our own reactions, but we might think, oh no, or crap. You might feel overwhelmed, anxious, or frustrated. It's never good to hear that a complaint about one of your team members, because we also know that our team members work so hard. So whatever those initial thoughts are, it's important to know that it's okay. And before we can be effective, we have to recognize those thoughts, get them out, and then approach the situation. I will sometimes write that, and I don't send it, an email, an emotional email that gets out all of my emotions. And then I will take a step away for a few minutes and come back and read it. And then I feel like I can be way more objective. But I had to get it out first. So people are allowed to have feelings, and they don't have to like everyone else. It doesn't mean they are right, or who they're complaining about is right. So I would first go to the person who made the complaint to understand what's happening. I would come from an empathetic approach without judgment on either end. And I think that's really important, is coming from a place of curiosity. Also, I want to thank the person who is sharing their issues with being willing to come to me and do so. And I'd probably ask for some specific examples so that I can get a better understanding of the situation and help create the best solution. From there, based on the examples and the evidence, I would create my next steps. So it might mean that I talk to the person who made the complaint and maybe help explain the situation. But it also means that I might have to talk to the employee that the complaint was made about, to help them understand what is happening and where the conflict lies, empathize with each side so that we can begin to create an understanding of where each person is coming from. And I'd use the information to ask about what solutions my team member has, and then if they would like me to help them, I might provide a few solutions to help better explain the issue, better explain themselves, or just move forward. A lot of times I find that it's a misunderstanding, and so how do we overcome that, and how can that person take the first steps to help overcome the understanding? I come from the thought of we're all doing the best that we can in the situation that we are in with the information that we have, and so we have to then move forward from that moment, gain more information, more solutions, and be able to improve in ourselves. I also want to pause throughout the process and ask myself, have I heard what people are trying to say, and am I responding with that in mind? I don't want to jump to conclusions. I want to be sure that I come from a place of curiosity To come in with only one side, to only work on resolutions can put people on guard, put their defenses up, and unable to listen. So instead, I want to create an opportunity for growth, problem solving, and understanding. And you probably hear me say it again and again. I think that it starts with empathy. Matt, do you have anything to add or anything from the chat that you think is important?
Yeah, I'm just reviewing the chat right now. One of the things that came up while you were talking about that, writing your email, walking away, giving yourself space to feel, is never have an email address in the to when you're doing that. There's no accidental push and send of your thoughts, because I think that release is really important to bring us back to a grounded space where we can think through the situation and how to approach it with that care in mind. Yeah, miscommunication. Yep, I'm just looking at the chats right now, so I agree.
Okay, do you want me to move on to 7 right now, or should we do one more before we get to 7?
Yeah, we can jump on to the last one. I know we're moving along to the end here.
All right, so the final scenario that we want to put out there is your team is navigating an organizational change.
So we're both going to actually share thoughts on this, but I'll jump in first. And I don't have a good one to say, but my first reaction here was to make a joke about this, because none of us have ever experienced this before. But I say that and also recognize this isn't a joke and brings up a lot of feelings for most of us. I encourage leaning into empathy. My first step, as Kara, you said previously, is take a personal inventory. So I can be my authentic self with others, but also keep in mind kind of where I'm at while supporting someone else. The next thing on my mind is, if I am a leader, how is my team doing? How are they feeling? And I think it's important to both engage as a group as well as individually on topics like this. Make space for talking about the organizational change in team meetings. Ask how people are doing, just like we said in the other questions, that non-judgmental, genuine interest and curiosity. Are there themes that I might be noticing that are present across group conversations that tell me it would be helpful to either add additional insight that I already have, or that we need to raise as a question and seek an answer for if available? And then moving to the individual conversations, I think it really is a chance to check in, not only on if anyone was maybe hesitant to share in the group, but to seek partners in navigating uncertainty and use the space to model a focus on what I can control and the positive impact I can continue to demonstrate. For me, it's easy to drift into all of what I can't control and kind of catastrophize, but really bringing me back to that, what is in my sphere, and modeling that, I think, is a really important part of this navigating change. If impact is maybe present for someone and I'm aware of this, can I provide care directly through sharing information again, strategizing self-care practices? I think, again, and I've done some of the sessions in other places, when we're at our most stressful times, it might be hard to remember to take care of ourselves. So is that something that can be supportive in this situation? Does it go to addressing workload or other ways to offer and demonstrate support, and or connecting with resources? In the end, we all do have the choice to be at an organization or not. And this can also be a part of the conversation. And I recognize it might not sound like it, but in a really caring and encouraging way if needed. But overall, I want to create caring spaces that invite authenticity and shared support, while truly remaining focused on what I can do, what we can do, and the why of the work that we're here. I'll hand it over to you, Kara.
All right, thank you, Matt. It's funny, when preparing, I didn't make any notes, but I told Matt my same reaction was to make a joke first. But it goes back to how am I feeling right now? And so I really believe in the power of genuineness and congruence. So I'm allowed to have initial reactions that might not like the change. I need to get those out and understand them. Then I need to reset, think about the problem the change is trying to resolve, and how the change can influence the problem or create new opportunities. Look at both the benefits and the challenges, and then come up with how we might overcome the challenges ahead. Now that I've thought all of that out, I can talk to my team members. I want to be honest about my initial reactions, because they're probably the same as my team, and empathize that they might be feeling similarly, but then let my team know about how the change can be helpful and be realistic as to what might lie ahead. It's important to keep at the center of why the change is happening and how it will benefit our cause. Then it's time to listen to the team. They're allowed to complain. I think that's an effective and important part of the process, so letting them get that out. They also might embrace the change, and that's okay. I might not have all the answers, but I'm willing to try to get them if it's possible. I want to offer support, even if I do not have all the answers, and empathize with each individual. I'd remind the team of their strengths and how we can use them. As we move forward, it's important to let team members know I am here to listen and listen without judgment. We can have regular meetings to discuss not only how the team is feeling, but how the change is impacting them, good or bad, celebrate their wins, and examine how we can overcome obstacles together, not making it feel like it's all on one person's shoulders. Through it all, it's important to recognize the feelings of the team. If they are not well, then they cannot do their best. So how can the organization help with the wellness as we navigate through the change that could be difficult?
I just want to call out, Cassandra, I love your question there in the chat. What about this change scares us? I think is such a great question.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for your insight. You know, we talk about culture of care a lot with our students, but I think it's really important that we need to apply that to each other as well. We have a little bit of time left, so I would like to open up for some conversation. If you have comments or questions for Matt or Kara, we've got probably about 4 or 5 minutes that we can focus on that.
We're also, I think, Moppy, you were going to do this, drop our contact info in the chat for anybody that might not have it. Of course, no, you can reach out to us directly and at any point for support navigating situations.
Yep, thank you.
And just a thank you to everyone for being here with us today.
And I will say, I think this is interesting, it's off script, Matt, but when we initially approached this and we talked about, okay, how do you handle a difficult situation? I was like, I started with feelings and Matt started with behavior, but then when we wrote our answers, they tended to follow the same pattern. So it was really interesting how we think that we think versus how the action really plays out. So I just thought that was an interesting thing that to share as we were preparing for this.
I did love that too.
Any comments or questions from the participant? You've got a lot of great comments in the chat. You want to share some of those with us verbally?
Let's see. So Teresa, Handy, thank you. Great presentation. Love the scenarios. Alexa, thank you. I'm grateful to hear your thoughts, knowing a little of what you both work on and how much you do for the students. Bill Davis, he asks, how important is it to assume positive intent when anyone brings an issue to you? I love that question. And it goes back to what I said is, I think we all do the best we can with the information we have and the experiences that we have, understanding that our past experiences influence how we think and feel and react to current situations. And so coming from an assumption that whoever we're talking to is trying their best, I think sets up a more empathetic and growth potential opportunity. Do you have anything to add, Matt?
No, I love that. I think that's so great. Absolutely support it.
First of all, a big thank you to Matt and to Kara. I think that was a very interesting, engaging presentation. On behalf of the Department of Behavioral Services and the University of Arizona Global Campus, we really thank you for being here. The next session starts in about 10 minutes. You will see in the chat, Antoinette is going to put in the chat what the next sessions are in this or in this area, and so that you can get right to them. And we'll give you about 5 minutes and start up again and at 9 or at on the hour, because it's not 9 o'clock everywhere. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time and your input.